So we're going to go in and get started. I want to give you just a little bit of information about what Fireside Forums really are about. These are meant to be real conversations about important topics. The reality is that, we all know how difficult the system can be. We know how difficult just life as a caregiver, as a caseworker, the people who are in the industry. This is tough work. This is really hard work, but it's good work and it's transformative work. And part of what we really want to be able to do with these kind of conversations is to be able to sort through some of the details, to get real, solid, expert-led information, while at the same time really making this a conversation. Because we don't just need more information. We need each other. We need a conversation where we can really engage each other and be a part of this process with each other, with just figuring this whole stuff out. So that's what we mean when we say, these are warm conversations with experts that lead the way. It's, a chance to come together, to learn from experts, but really also to learn from each other and engage each other in this process. So the way that we're going to do this is that, again, if you've got video and you're willing to let us see your face, we'd love to see your face. Otherwise, we're going to spend the first 20 minutes or so. It's just going to be me and Jenniffer talking. Jenniffer is our expert for the day. Jenniffer has been in this industry for almost 15 years, and you've been with RiseUP for about how long, Jenniffer?
Almost three.
About 3 years now. So Jenniffer is somebody that I feel like I have learned a ton from. I'm excited to hear her and hear the topics that she's going to be talking about, because it's a really important one here. But again, we're going to spend a few minutes just her and I going back and forth so we can lay out the topic and have a sense of where we're going with everything. And after that point, if you guys have information or you have ideas you'd like to express, you have questions that you'd like to ask Jenniffer in this process, please feel free to chime in, unmute yourself, and jump in. If you're not in a place where you've got a microphone and you can text, again, stay safe if you're driving or something like that, but feel free to text your questions in as well, and I'm happy to ask them. But the more we can really make this a conversation, the better. That's really what the goal is. So I am going to spotlight Jenniffer here and myself so we can look at each other. Hi, Jenniffer.
Hey.
All right. Well, so Jenniffer is one of these people that at RiseUP, when I first came in, I think you and I sat down for almost 2 hours at one point or another. And just the amount of information that poured off the top of this woman's head was absolutely incredible to me. And so I really appreciate you, Jenniffer. I appreciate all the expertise that you bring to the table. And the capacity that you have just for absorbing as much information as you have, and your heart for all of this too. I mean, I just really have seen that come through as I've interacted with you both, that first session and all the way through in this time. You just really care for people. So I'll throw that out there in kind of a broad response to who you are, but could you give us a little bit, just like, who are you? Why are you at this table? What's your role you play in all of this?
Oh, I play many roles, but I come in as just somebody who got in this field just in a sense by I needed a job, and then I got into this specific field because of my purpose of just helping people. Like, I really like when I'm actually useful to people, that I can give them information, that I can help them problem solve. One of the things with me is I always prepare for the worst, hope for the best, which is why this topic is so important to me. And it's just so many years of seeing so many different cases. I started as a DSP, went on to be a case manager, then came into residential services. So I've seen quite a few things happen over the years. I've worked with the CES waiver, CHIRP waiver, GD waiver, SLS waiver, state SLS waivers. So I've had so many different experiences amongst people who are fresh, brand new to the system, and others that have been around for a long time and are struggling as well, just making sure that, okay, I'm keeping up with all the changes, I'm keeping up with all the case management changes with like information that is out there, where should I find information? So I've just been to many different places and talked to many different people that I know. Sometimes you're so in the moment that you really think, well, I'll have time for that. I'll do the prep, I'll do the planning. Oh, yes, contingency. This is what I have. I'll have more time to hash that out. And then an emergency happen. So that's where I'm at. And that's why this topic is so important for me. Is like, let's do take the time, and even if it's a couple of conversations, write it down in one specific notebook and keep it around. So then if that emergency ever happens, information is in this one central location and people can actually do what the intent of the planning was supposed to be.
Sure, sure. And let's, I want to get more into some of the details that, that you and I talked about a little bit, as just you were bouncing off ideas about what this topic would look like. But I mean, I think it's such an important topic for caregivers, particularly because, I mean, the reality is none of us can be caregivers 24/7, 365 days a year. I mean, not only the fact that we all just need a break at times, but life happens. It just does. The furnace breaks, somebody dies in the family, your kid needs, another child needs some help. There are things that just happen in life that can take you out for a day or a week or a month, and you just don't know, much less the fact that time marches on and we're all getting older. As much as we don't want to, a lot of us don't want to admit the fact that we are, there's going to be a point where we simply can't do it anymore. And that could be tomorrow. I mean, you get into a car accident, something could happen, and your capacity to caregive anymore could be over just like that. So, I mean, obviously this is a huge topic. But one of the things I, again, love about you, Jenniffer, is that, not only do you have Jenniffer's also our technical person in the organization too. She's the one that fixes the computers. She's got a very large brain here. This is a woman with a lot of experience and a lot of understanding of things. So, but Jenniffer, I mean, one of the things you've talked to a lot of parents too, and you know what people are going through. You know the kind of feelings that people have. What does this look like when it's in real life? When you're walking through this, I mean, do you have a story or just what does that experience look like?
Yeah, one story in particular that I always remember is this family who kind of split duties. So siblings were taking over a couple of weekends and providing some respite, as we all know it, to the parents. Dad took care of finance and medical appointments. Mom took care of more of the stuff at home. So everything was running really smoothly for them. Then it happened to be an accident that the dad had, and he did not make it from his injuries. So when the brothers and sisters came together to help out and help mom, they couldn't find anything related to doctor's appointments or where the financial stuff is. All the paperwork, all the information that he had was more of with him. So when now they had no access to him, so they had no access to the information. So the family called, at the time I was their case manager, so they called me and they were just asking, okay, I'm sorry, like I'm the sister, you might have, heard about me. She was actually one of our emergency contacts on file. And she explained the situation, and she explained that she was not sure what was going on with her brother's services. She knew he needed help, but mom and dad took care of everything. So all they did was just have him over a couple of times to give them that break. But they weren't quite sure, like, if he had day program. They didn't know about his appointments. They didn't really know about like where was he going, what was supposed to be happening next time, what was happening with like applications, Medicaid determination, our services, case management information, like who kept all of that. So I helped them with whatever I had on file. I gave them the information. I also told them where to go in terms of like the determination, switching paperwork. Dad was involved with like he was a referee and he was also a guardian. So it was like making sure, okay, who else was on that paperwork that needs to be switched, and they need to be notified that they need to contact that second person, that first person was no longer available. So it was a lot of more of the technicalities of it all that they were not sure where to start. And then it was about, well, what do we do now? At the time, the individual was in the SLS waiver. So then that meant that they just had supplemental services, they had day program, but family was the backup plans. Family was the residential service. So at the time they were wondering, okay, I see what this means. I want more information about later on. At this time, we're fine with this setup in terms of the home. But then the sister was like, well, if something happens to my mom, then I become the caregiver for two people. I need to make sure that I'm ready for that because I also have a full-time job and my own family. So it's a little bit of who is your backup and who is your backup's backup. And it's conversations that everybody just feels like they have time. And I think over and over again, I feel like everybody's like, oh yeah, I have one person, I have the contact, I have time to give them the details. But when it comes to an emergency, you're not going to have that time to actually verbally get those details. So where is
Right.
that information?
So, I mean, there's a difference in sort of preparing for the possibility that I need to go out of state next week and the reality that an emergency could happen that really might throw everything in jeopardy. Is there a similarity in the way that you would recommend people preparing for both of those things, or is it really two different kind of contexts?
It's almost the same thing in terms of your day to day. I mean, an emergency or something that like throws a trench into the day to day routine. It's not only something that is going to affect you and trying to figure out what's going on, but it's going to be the person that you're taking care of. It's going to be a brand new person coming in and supporting them that they might not know. It might be somebody that they know, but that person just knows them as the person that like we hang out at the park or at the mall or on weekends, but they don't really know the morning routine. They don't know the evening routine. They don't know medications. They don't know other people to call. They don't know they're going to such and such day program, or this is the person that you need to contact in terms of the transportation of the day to day. I feel like there's various amounts of information that people need to know in order to actually completely take over, even if it's an overnight, even if it's a weekend of like, I have an emergency, I need to go out of town for something. Who is the person that can come in and smoothly get right into that routine? And they know at what time things happen, how they happen. Is there somebody that you need to call? Is there something specific that the person really cares about that you might not have in a service plan or a medical plan? I've told you before, we had individuals where I will go and do community activities with, and this guy did not like for his drink to be thrown away, even if the cup was empty. Well, I didn't realize that at the beginning of my time with him, and we grab all the trash. I was like, okay, put your trash here. He put the cup. When I throw it away, that's the moment that his face immediately changed. I was like, wait, what did you just do? And I was like, I have no idea what I just did. What's going on? So he was mad with me the whole time. We got to his home. I dropped him off, and his sister was like, next time, don't throw away the cup. Like, he knows that that's trash, but you do not throw away the cup. So it's one of those things that it might be the tiniest thing that you really don't think about actually giving to people, but it will make their day if that person knows.
Gotcha. So, I mean, yeah, in some ways, I mean, what you're talking about, there's two really different parts of thinking through what a transition would look like. There's all the logistical details, which is the ones we tend to think about, you know, that, oh, we got to give medication at 8 and at noon and at 4 or whatever else, or, you know, we've got to make sure they're at bedtimes or, you know, other kinds of things. But then there's all the preferences that the individual has and the ways to interact them. And do they know that person? There's the relational kind of aspects that you can't just throw somebody, especially somebody who's already struggling to, you know, be able to interact with the world on a consistent level, you know, that's struggling with a disability. You can't just throw them into a new situation and expect them to adapt in the same way that somebody who's not neurodivergent would be able to do necessarily. So there really is a whole different level of contexts to think through. How do you do that? How do you really engage that process so that you can really transfer this to somebody else who was coming in? Say you're, like you said, your backup of your backup, you know, that the backup, maybe something's happened to the backup as well, or something of that nature. Are there things that a caretaker can do to make this transition easier for whoever does wind up taking over, even if it's not the one you're necessarily thinking or planning for?
I think I always ask for the person who does the main care to write things down, to keep, in a sense, like a diary of sorts, of a journal of just saying like, this is what a good day looks like, this is what a bad day looks like, these are the morning routines, these are the things that makes it easier for them to follow or deal with changes. And just those things that you randomly think about, just keep them in a notebook of sorts, write them down, and keep them in what I call like a memory box. It could be a plastic container, it could be a bag, it could be just a cardboard board box. And it's just something where you're gonna put all that information in. Like, this is the people, the contact sheets, servicemen, and you can just put it in a box. Then you have that notebook of, this is what they like, this is what they don't like, these are the meals that they prefer, these are the meals that don't even bother with suggesting, like that's not going to happen. But when it comes time to transitions and emergencies and changes and everything else moving around them, it's nice to have that meal that is comforting, is their favorite meal. It's somebody that, okay, you know that this is my favorite show, or you know that this is what I like to do in order to wind down for the day. So everything else is changing, but at least activities that they prefer and things that they prefer are constant there.
Hmm. And when individuals do have those kind of transitions, like you talked about the one where you threw away the cup and the individual just kind of freaked out because that was one of the things that happened. What are some of the, like, I'm sure you've seen this happen a number of times where somebody has had to go into a situation they weren't expecting. What kind of challenges do you see individuals struggling through, and what can a caregiver do to help sort of reduce that anxiety in addition to like more of the routine stuff? Are there other things that can be done to help prepare an individual for that kind of possible transition?
I would say, like, ask them in terms of where do you want to live, where, like, who you like from your family, your teams, things like that. Like, what do you like about them in particular? Because then that helps you when you're looking for a caregiver in the long run. It's like, it's sometimes I like this person, but it's not so much about that person. It might be like, hey, I like that they're always going out. I like that they're going outdoors, that they are hiking. I like those activities. So I like that person because that's what they do. It's also just making sure that when you're talking to the person that you're caring for, you ask them like, where would you like to be? Like, if you didn't live here, where would you like to be? And having those kind of like projections, and even more of like, if something happens, where would you like to go? For date program, like, hey, so you want to just keep going here? Like, Is there something in particular that you like about that program that you can kind of translate and mimic across the environments? So then that person feels comfortable with the changes. I feel like a little bit of something that we all went through, but with the pandemic, I felt like that was an emergency that a lot of people really were not prepared for at all. But then you really became the 24/7 caregiver. And it was at that point where it's like, if something like that happens, that you're like quarantine, how do you keep going? How do you keep things flowing? How do you keep those routines going? It's
Yeah.
all fun and games for like maybe a couple of days where you're having all these movie nights, but then it gets boring again. So it really is about those things where if something needed to happen, is there something that you can be comfortable with for a couple of days while things get figured out?
Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah. So I mean that's in some ways some of the more I guess softer skills kind of thing, in the sense of really trying to help take care of the person as a person, which again, I think is something that we tend not to think about when we're trying to organize in our brain what it is that we need to do in order to be able to facilitate a transition. We're thinking about more logistical stuff. We're thinking about the medical and the governmental stuff, and we're not tending to think about some of those relational aspects and what's going to cause anxiety, how are they going to help through that. But switching over to some of those other things, what do you find that parents, when they're preparing for a transition or they're thinking about a transition, either short term or long term, what are the things that get missed? What are the things that people don't prepare the way they need to prepare for, like in the situation that you described earlier, the story that you told earlier? What are the things that people have a tendency to either miss or under prepare for?
I think it's having like an assigned person, like having that one contact be a backup with all the governmental agencies in a sense. Because many times you do have somebody where you say a family member is going to take over, or I have this person that is going to take over. But if they're not a contact with the doctors, or they're not a contact with the bank, they cannot get into any of those things. So it's really making sure that it's like, okay, if that person is going to take over medical, can you like have them go with you to an appointment and then just say, hey, this is what it looks like. This is what the relation looks like. These are the information that you need to have some sort of document also of, hey, this is the person that is going to be assigned for medical decisions whenever this other person is not available. Because there are some rules and regs, and there's some HIPAA compliances, and there's some PHI things that offices are going to be like, I understand the situation, but I cannot give you any information until this authorization is signed or whatever. So it's like just having those things where you might have people, but they might not have the authorization to actually follow up and check in and do those things. And that could be you still be there, but you can't be there in person. And hey, to do the transfer, they had to be in person. So what do we do now?
Got it. Okay, how about this? I've got two more questions, and then I'd love to open it up to other people. I know you guys from the ARC that are here, or anybody else that's just as you've got questions that are coming up, please either put them in the chat or just get ready. I'd love to have you guys unmute and ask your questions as we go along. But two other questions that I've got. One is that talk us through, let's say an emergency does happen, something goes on, especially if it's a medical or something else, and if you're the caregiver, or if you're the one that's the backup, especially, and you've got so many other things on your brain. You've got to take care of this person who's just had an accident. You got to take care of these other things. You got to manage these other things. And then you get to the caregiving side of things. What are the steps? What should somebody do first? What are the most important things for them to do kind of right away?
So for, like, if I step in as the family caregiver or the person that is going to be now the primary caregiver, it really is having a little bit of a conversation of saying like, hey, I'm here to help. This is what my intent is. This is what I'm trying to get at. And just explain what your new role is in that person's life. I think that kind of eases the not sure of what's going on feeling that I myself might have, just being thrown into a situation, but it's really just let's work and we're here together to make this happen. So I think it's just making sure that the person then becomes comfortable, and then they know that you have their back, even if, hey, I'm gonna be a little bit lost. How is it that your mom does X, Y, and Z? It happens when you're a provider also, that you just got like a sheet of information. This is everything that the person does. And if you're like in their home, it's like, well, what is it that they do first? And just have them be involved in that, and knowing that you're here to learn. What is it that it's important for them, to them? So it's just getting into that habit of like, let's make sure we're not just doing the task, but we're explaining what we're doing, and we're asking the individual to actually be involved in their life.
Gotcha. Well, I do have one other question, but let me open it up first before I even ask that one. If you want to raise your hand, if you go down to the bottom that says react, you can actually raise your hand. Whoops, that's not it. How do you raise your hand? It used to be under reaction, but it looks like it's under something else now. If anybody knows how to raise your hand on Zoom, let me know. I've been doing it in Microsoft Teams for the last several months. So either just unmute or raise your hand and let us know that you've got a question. Devin, yes, please go for it. How did you do that, by the way?
Well, I didn't really have a question. I just wanted to raise my hand. You're in the right, you're in the right spot. It's the reaction. If you click on it, you'll see lower hand at the bottom.
Gotcha. Okay, sounds good.
I'm going to be a rocket ship now.
Got it.
I do have one question,
Yes,
Jenniffer.
please go for it.
Do you find that it's better to include the individual in the awkward conversations about who wants to be caregivers and providers? Or do you find that this is something that happens over a couple of different kinds of conversations with and without the individual?
It's a couple of conversations. It's with the individual, it's without the individual. Sometimes it's first without, because you're asking the persons that you think might be your backup and say, hey, I want, or I need to have somebody that I can call in case of an emergency. Would you be that person? If that person agrees, then we have the second conversation. Then we have the person being there with us for that conversation of just saying, okay, this is the person that could be here to help you when I'm not available, and have them walk through that and talk through that.
Sounds good. Pete?
So I have like a hypothetical situation. Just curious to see how you respond. Let's say, because this is how my mind works, right? Something tragic happens, parents can no longer care for the child, and it's the siblings that have to do it. There's a lot of, I hear different opinions on that, on what you have to do and how long it'll take. But I hear of power of attorney, right? Medical, and along with financial power of attorney. Was that what you would do first, or what would you do specifically in those situations?
So if I were a sibling and my parents weren't able to do the care anymore, and then I become the person that needs to provide that care, provide that solution. So when that happens, if there was something else in place, that becomes like, if that person is no longer available, then the person becomes their own guardian. The person becomes their own person to do all the authorizations that they had in the past. So I would ask them like, hey, what do you feel more comfortable with? Like, we're having, let's say for medical, It's like, what do you need help with specifically? Is it making the appointment? Is it just making sure that the doctor hears you and understands what's going on with you? Or is it more of like the following up with the recommendations of the doctors? You don't have to have like the power medical attorney document to just help with decision making. Like you can help with the decision you're making without having that authorization. When there's procedures involved, you can have something where it's just procedure specific. So let's say they're having this done, they need to go under with anesthesia, they will have you like as the proxy. So then you're the next person of making that decision because they're unable to make that decision at that time. And having those conversations at that point of like, hey, you're going to be under anesthesia, you're gonna be sleeping. If they need to do this, X, Y, and Z, give them options, what would you like me to do? Then, if you're feeling like, okay, there's more and more times where I'm being asked for a paper, that I'm not just supporting this person with the decision making, but I have to have some sort of paper saying, yes, I'm the one that needs to sign, then we can go that route. So with the medical power of attorney, like you can go to your county's legal office and get that information done. Sometimes it's a little bit more on your end and you legwork and paperwork that you need to fill out. You don't necessarily need to hire an attorney to get some of these documents, but it's really just educating yourself about, okay, do I need this document for everything? Or can it be just, I'm supporting this decision, I'm supporting this person with making decisions, and it will just be on certain cases that I will need to have that authority. So it really kind of like depends on the independence level of the individual, their medical needs, and where are you in terms of, is this something that makes more sense for me to go through the route of getting that document just for when I need it, but continue with just like more of a supportive person for the decision making.
I've heard that you would need a notary as well. Is that correct?
Yes, there's I think it's the power medical, the medical one that does not need it. It's not required in the state of Colorado. It has the line for it, but it's not required.
Is it financial then that's needed?
I think the financial is the one that is needed,
Gotcha.
mainly because you're dealing with more on getting into the banking system, and banks don't just give you the power for somebody else to have my access to my accounts. So
it sounds like, you hear stories, and as I mentioned, my world is just in the school system, so I don't really work with adults much. But and being a sibling, you hear stories where people are like, you need to have this done, you need to have this done, or else if something terrible happens, then social services will come in and blah, blah, blah. Where it doesn't seem like it's that, I mean, it's obviously like very important, but to have that plan, but it's not, maybe there's some exaggeration on that stuff, or you know what I'm talking about? I'm sure.
yes, and it really is more because they want people to plan. They want people to like have some sort of, hey, this is what's going to happen. So like if you still have an underage and something happens to you, then it really becomes of who will be the guardian for this individual who is underage, like who's going to be helping with education decision making, who's going to be helping with other things. So it's having like, and I will suggest maybe like even a living will, where it's something in writing that says, hey, this is who is going to be assigned as the person who's going to support them with their decision making. This is where they are going to live. This is what's going to happen moving forward. Like, this is my wish for this person, because if I'm not there, they need to have somebody else to actually support. And this is how I want that support to look like. So it really depends on like the age, but really for, if you're in the school system, like you get that, you need to have that done and now, and it's mainly because they're underage. So they themselves cannot legally make a decision.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even in the adult world, there's people that will say you got to have this done, or else social services will take over, blah blah blah. So
Mhm.
yeah, no, thanks for talking about this. I think,
Okay.
it's not uncommon too for the parents to push back as well when it comes to some of the future planning. I think that is in itself its own challenge, is navigating that conversation well with the whole family.
Yeah, definitely. And again, it's like I said at the beginning, it's because people just think they have more time. I have
Yeah.
time to do that. We'll figure it out. Or it's always like, oh, well, my other children are definitely going to be involved. They're already involved. They know what to do. And sometimes I'm a little bit like, do they though? Can they attend one of our meetings? Is it okay for them to attend one of the meetings? Or just gather a copy of the information, just have those contacts, be aware, because it is, I've seen it where it's like they have the best of intent, but they have no idea about waivers. They have no idea who the case manager is. They have no idea what the paperwork that arrives at the home is. They know about the care for the individual and they care for them, but the whole legality and all the paperwork, they're not involved on that. And so they are not sure where to even start.
Gotcha.
Jenniffer, the supportive decision-making model would be awesome to review too for families, just because that it actually comes up with an agreement that the family can make amongst themselves as an alternative to guardianship, and it is recognized by the courts. So that's just something to think about too. It's a great idea to review it and learn about it.
Definitely. And I did see in there, sorry for the banging. I did see in there the 5 wishes. That's another great way to approach. And it really is like a questionnaire of like, what are things that you wish for? And you just write it out. And that's why I said, like, even with the notebook, just write out what things would you like to see, how the individual actually receives information, have them be involved. And sometimes it really is just rephrasing those questions. Like you might be talking to somebody else or the school really legally and having paperwork done, but it's just talking to them about like, hey, who do you want like to live with? Like, where do you want to live? Do you want to be in the city? Do you want to be outside? So then that gives you a better idea as to like how to support them with those decisions down the road. I think
Good.
Amy.
Well, hang on a second. Lorena's also got a question. I
Oh.
also wanted real quickly, Lorena, before you do, Jason, is there anything else you wanted to say about 5 wishes since we were on that topic? And then we got Lorena and Amy both with some ideas as well.
It's never an easy conversation to have with anybody, especially the individuals that we serve and support. But I think if you have a real common conversation, sit around their table, find out what's important to them and what they're looking for, it makes it a whole lot easier. If I can just touch on that supported decision-making agreement here in Colorado, it doesn't have to be notarized unless there's not 2 witnesses present. So I find it an extremely valuable tool to use, kind of a step down from guardianship. It's not as restrictive, if you will, kind of least restrictive. So both very, very valuable tools.
Fantastic.
Yes.
All right, how about Lorena and then Amy? We can go after that. Go ahead, Lorena. You have to unmute yourself first. Yeah.
Okay, I had a question in the fact that I have an adult son and we have guardianship for him.
Lorena, can you turn your video? Yeah, there, get your video back on. There you
Yeah.
go.
And we have guardianship for him. And we have a living will and it's set up as to where he would go, in the worst case scenario. But things have changed dramatically. And we're kind of at a loss as kind of what we're going to do. So if one of the older siblings would step up, how do they go about that with us having guardianship and nothing else in place to move forward other than what was in that will at the time? And that's not going to be the case anymore. So we're kind of at a dead end on what we're going to do.
you could possibly add that individual as a successor guardian. Is it you and the father as co-guardian and guardian right now?
Yes.
Okay. I believe
Yeah.
you could add a third one.
Well, we
Sure.
did. And, but like I said, that situation has changed where that probably will not be possible for them to actually take over in that role. So you know,
Any other family members available? Or as an
there
option?
there are 4 other older siblings that could possibly, it's just that at the whole, they're not really in position to be able to do that. They could do it temporarily. But we don't see how they could probably do it as a full-time step in and become the sole main caregiver.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. Any support members on the team? An agency that he works with, friends possibly?
No, no. And, we're real hesitant about, I mean, I'm sure that they would probably pull together and possibly work this out. And we kind of hate to see them placed in a residential services. But that's kind of where we're looking at, because we are pushing 70. So we're in good health, but like you said, you never know when emergency is going to prop up. And temporarily, like I said, we have guardianship. So, and it is in the trust for the one older brother to step in and has powers of attorneys and that kind of stuff that would, where he could step in and take over. But we're just kind of, I don't know really what my question was. It was like, how do we move forward from this then?
Might
It's
be
really,
worthwhile to, sorry, Jennifer, might be worthwhile to contact the Office of Public Guardianship. I'm assuming you're here in Colorado?
Yes.
Okay, so I would maybe look towards the Office of Public Guardianship. And not all our chapters here in Colorado do guardianship, depending on your county. Could maybe contact the ARC of Colorado, see if they might have any ideas.
Okay. Well, I know Pete could help me.
yeah.
Jennifer, yeah, what were you gonna say?
Well, just talk about or talk about it with the team of like what the options are for even currently right now. I know you said at the beginning that he is in day program. Like, is there another service that he can utilize for like temporary respite, even if it's hourly? So then you guys can interview agency that does like do those services. You can interview providers that do that kind of care. So then at this, like, this is the time for you to gather that information, see what it actually looks like, have like trials. So then later on, then you can say, okay, so siblings can have guardianship or not have a guardianship. That just has like a backup from a judge saying that you're the person making the decision. But that doesn't mean that we're completely going to exclude you from decision makings and activities of what the individual is wanting as a family member. Like, you are going to be involved in that conversation, whether or not you have that guardianship, if that person allows it. But it really is about just what is out there. And I just feel like sometimes it's that whole thing of you don't know until you know. So
Right.
you're saying like you're not sure about like a residential setting, but residential settings have come a long way. So what does that look like now? What does that look like in your area? How is that different from other residential settings? So residential settings can capture quite a bit. Like, we can have individuals are like in a home in your community, like people next door could be actually providing care to an individual and service an individual with IDD, and they're not necessarily blood relatives. It could be something of, or they could be in their own apartment with somebody coming in just once in a while and then just checking in, making sure things are clean, making sure things are happening. And when the family member is just not available, can it be the family member getting that backup coming into that home? So if they are able to, in a sense, house the person, but they're like, I'm not sure that I can do and be the 24/7. Can I get help from somewhere else? And look at all the options that are available to you at this time. And what could be available in the future, whether that is switching a waiver or getting into another list, something like that with your case manager.
Okay. And I think that something I did hear is, possibly getting those older siblings together and us kind of having a family meeting and kind of working through this to see. That's a great option. I've taken a ton of notes.
Sounds good.
So I appreciate it. Things I hadn't thought of.
Yeah, and that's
I-
definitely like you don't. Sometimes there could be a sibling that says, "Okay, we cannot just one do all this, but I'm gonna take care of the medical. You take care of the fine." Like it really just is divvying up the work and see what's also out there in terms of supports that he would have through waivers and other team members. And Terry here put like the Guardianship Alliance. Also, it's a good place to start. They have a lot of information. So it really is just there's a lot of information out there, but because there's a lot of information, it's overwhelming. So if you just start with the family and say, okay, what do we want to see? What is our capacity? Like, let's be honest. What is it that you can and cannot do? And then once we find a list of, okay, we don't have anybody for this 3 or 4 things, then going outside and bringing in that support.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds good. And I just want to say real quickly too, before we get to Amy, because I do want to let Amy has been patiently waiting for this as well, is that Jenniffer and Devin is on the call here too. Terry, who was the person from the Fireside Forum last week. And it sounds like Jason and Pete, both of you guys are at the ARC. There are a lot of experts out there. There are a lot of people who are happy to walk through this whole process with you. And one of the things at RiseUP that we really want to make sure that we are making ourselves available for is that if you need some help, because again, just to emphasize what Jenniffer was just saying, the system is not friendly. there's nothing about the system that was designed to make it easy for you. The system was designed just to get everything done, and the bureaucracy, the level of ease was not put in there in a way that made it user-friendly at all. So asking for help can be a lifesaver at times, and some people really have a hard time asking for help. So if you're one of those, please don't be afraid and just give a call. Go to our website. We can, we're happy to set up one-to-one calls with experts just to guide you through the process, because it's hard. This is just really, really hard sometimes. So.
Well, I appreciate it. I was glad to see Pete on here because I happen to know him with
Good.
the ARC, so I can touch base with him and pick his brain.
Fantastic. All right, Amy, please. Sorry to keep you waiting.
No, thank you. Oh my gosh, this is wow, good information. And I thought we were kind of prepared, and now, but it also just makes you realize that we do have a plan in place, but maybe we need to reevaluate it every few years and just touch base with things, not only just like continuing the guardianship annually, but really going in those deep conversations. And I truly was stuck on the legal aspect and the medical, because my daughter's so medically challenged. I didn't even think about like the companionship component and all those great things you guys have brought up. So thank you for that. It made me really think about things a little differently. And we are kind of in boats by ourselves, but it's nice that you guys, Tom, thank you, and your team for throwing us some lifelines. This is good information. But I wanted to speak to the gentleman that was, I think, in education, maybe a teacher or with a school. And I love that he's here and listening and trying to like take the fear out of it, which is true. But you also have to have, you know, if you don't put a little bit of fears, and I know parents, we procrastinate because other things get in the way. But I really like that he said something. And I tell you, it is a really hard conversation to have. And I was really blessed when my daughter was in third and fourth grade to have a teacher that saw things in the future. And she started planting little seeds with me in elementary school. And when she did it, I can tell you, I was mad. I was like, how dare she talk about my daughter as she's an adult and what we're going to do with her. It kind of does ruffle your feathers for a moment, but then it plants a seed. And then by the time fifth grade came around and that transition was happening, I was like, okay. And then seventh and eighth grade transit and all these big transitions that are going to be coming up, because they're going to happen. So we can put our head into the sand, or we can just be it was just nice. I guess what I'm trying to say is just little kind seeds of reality, and they do eventually grow. And then by the time it was there, it was still scary, and I was still unsure, and it's not an easy process, but it wasn't a shock to me. I was ready. And so I just wanted to say that I love that education is here too, because I do think you are going to meet a lot of resistance, and you'll meet resistance from parents that are like me. Like in third grade, I was like, she doesn't know what she's talking about, but she did. She totally did know what she was talking about. And I just want to say thank you to everybody on this call. But I don't even know if I'm making any sense, Tom, but I just think little seeds,
You're doing
parents,
great,
the
Amy.
earlier the better. And then it's not such a shock when your kid turns 16 or 18 or 21, because even when you're prepared, it's still shocking how much things change for us. And so that's all. I'm sorry. I can go on, but thank you
Amy,
guys for listening.
Amy, seriously, thank you very much for that. And I mean, I think there are a lot of parents that can relate to exactly what you're talking about, and it does change, I mean, even for those of us who have neurotypical kids, that the idea that we can talk to them at 10, figure out what they like, and then at 16, they're going to be the same. That's not even remotely the case. This has to be an ongoing conversation. The people's preferences change, their relationships change, the way they feel about things change, and we need to be able to engage them where they are in the time frame that they're in. So I think those are all just extremely well articulated points. So thank you very much for that, Amy. Any other actually, I've got one more question I really want to ask to Jenniffer for you is what resources does RiseUP have that, or other resources that people have? We've already talked about this a little bit, but if somebody's in a one of these transitions, or maybe they just need a break, maybe it's just one of those situations where life has just gotten to be too overwhelming and they just need some help. What kind of help can RiseUP offer? I'd also love to hear from the ARC as well, because I know you guys offer a ton of things. But Jenniffer, could you speak from RiseUP?
So for RiseUP specifically, I'm the residential director. So I do adult residential services specifically. We have respite happening now. We have a couple of providers in Colorado Springs area that do the respite for SLS waivers. So it doesn't have to be the DD waiver residential service itself. But we have plenty of people at RiseUP that have years of experience helping people navigate services, not only internal services, but what to ask your case manager, what to ask your doctor for in terms of like what kind of supports you need. Community centers out there and community events come together for those type of things. So there's stuff that is outside of waivers too, that can assist with respite needs, that can assist with just having an activity that is supervised, that you just go drop off, come and have a couple of hours. I mean, I always tell people, like, you need a couple of hours for yourselves. I know that I even say that to like the caregivers themselves. It's like, okay, if everybody wakes up at a certain time, are you waking up half an hour before so that you can have your coffee and peas or your tea? Or are you just at the end of the night? Are you just like decompressing through for the day, because you need that break as well. You are always with that caregiver hat. And I've been around for over 15 years. So I see the guilt of people. Sometimes I have myself have guilt of like, oh, but I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to be available. But you can't keep pouring out what you don't have. If you don't take those breaks, if you don't take that rest, then you're not going to be optimal to help anybody else. So just don't feel guilty about needing a couple of minutes, a couple of hours, a couple of days for yourself.
That's a fantastic thing. And I think we probably need to end here. We've only got a couple minutes left. But again, thank you guys all for being a part of this. This is the conversation is just better with the more people, the more backgrounds, the more experience that we have. There's just a lot here on this call. And I mean, Lorena, thank you for your questions on all this. Amy, your contribution here, and everybody else, Jason and Pete, from guys from ARC, just appreciate your presence in all of this. We need each other. We really do. We need the capacity to be able to help each other through this process, not just in navigating and getting knowledge, but really also just Jenniffer, what you were just ending there with, the emotional support. This is hard work. I think that's why we talk about this as transformative work, because when you have to put yourself out there emotionally in order to build the capacity of those that have struggled the most to build their own capacity, we are all being transformed. So this really is a transformative community in that process. So again, thank you guys all for being a part of that. I want to let you guys know too, we've got our next one. Devin, you're going to be the next person up, right? And your call is on August. It'll be out there. We'll get it out to everybody. Devin's going to be talking about managing case management. So really, how do you navigate the process of dealing with case management? What does it look like from the case manager's perspective? So I think it's going to be extremely valuable conversation for anybody who works with case management. Case management is our friend, but it can also be a point of huge frustration if we're not aware of and prepared for what's going to come there. So so again, thank you guys, and we will look forward to seeing you guys in the next go round, next time this comes around. So thank you so much, and please let your friends know about it. Invite people along. The more the merrier, and the deeper the conversation can go. So
Thank you, everyone.
thank you, everyone. Take care.